Hello and welcome to part 3 of my beginner's guide to shooting Olympic trap. So as a quick recap, in the last 2 videos we covered how to position the feet correctly, how to hold your knees, we covered weight transfer and balance onto the front foot, and then we looked at mounting the gun, your hands and your arm positions, and dropping your head correctly onto the stock. Now we know how to get into the correct ready position, ready to shoot, we need to check the fit of the gun. First up, stock length, or more commonly known as length of pull. This is the measurement from the trigger to the middle of the butt of the gun or the recoil pad. Okay, the traditional guide for this is to place the stock into the bend in your elbow and pull your arm up to about 90 degrees and just see how well your hand fits on the pistol grip and your finger reaches the trigger. Now, although this gives a rough indication to see if something is really a long way out, I think it's a lot more beneficial to try and mount the gun up in front of a mirror or with a friend to take photos and have a look. So before we check gun fit, we're just going to go through how to mount the gun again as a little recap, how to get your head on the stock correctly before checking the gun fit. Okay, so remember, I'm going to do this one-handed so it's a lot easier for you to see what's going on. So we close the gun, we push away and up, into the shoulder, head gently forward, though not causing any strain across the back of your neck. You mustn't force it, and down into the ready position. Now you can see my nose is about 2 finger widths from the end of the comb. So that stock fits me somewhere near, it's not too bad. I would say as a good starting point, if you're within 3 finger widths of the front of the comb, you're somewhere near good to go. So another little check that can affect the length of pull, you might have a long or a short neck in relation to your arms. So if we just check, mount the gun up and look. Okay, so if you look like your arms were really bent up double like this, stock would probably be a bit too short. And if it looked like you're having to reach out and hold the gun out, obviously the stock's going to be a little bit too long. So how can we alter that? Well, when you have a adjustable stock, a fully adjustable stock, it's quite easy. When you are using a normal stock, as I've shown you before, there's a couple of little options. Here are 3 recoil pads of varying thicknesses. With those different recoil pads, of course, you can adjust the length a little bit, say maybe up to 3/4 of an inch. If you need a lot more taken off the stock, then I'm afraid it's going to be a trip to a gunsmith or a stocker and have your stock cut. Before you do that, I would always advise to get a professional opinion from someone who can fit the gun to you. If you need to lengthen the stock, again, if it's outside of what you can do with a larger recoil pad and you need to put an extension on, it's going to be a trip to the gunsmith. But it's not overly expensive, it doesn't take a lot of time to do, so it's not a massive setback. Although the golden rule in clay shooting is to always look at the target and never look at the end of the gun, the bead or the rib, to set a gun up properly, it's quite beneficial to have some sort of sight picture as a reference. For the shotgun to shoot where we want it to, where we're looking, we need our master eye to be looking straight down the rib. Any deviance to the left or to the right, no matter how small, will result in targets being missed. As well as alignment, we also need to think about the height of our eye above the rib. Generally, a trap gun set up for fast trap will place your eye further above the rib than your typical sporter setup. This means the gun will throw its pattern slightly higher. Now that's ideal for trap because you are generally shooting a target that is rising. So that means you don't have to blank the target out when you shoot it. So you don't lose sight of it, giving you a good view if you need to use your second barrel. If we look again at my suggested sight picture, you will see there is a bit of rib in view, and this is what we should be aiming for to start shooting OT. Having your eye a little bit lower and seeing slightly less rib than this is fine, but I certainly wouldn't recommend seeing much more rib than this to start off. It can be really helpful if you can get somebody to look back up the mounted gun up across the barrels back to your eye. What you are trying to achieve is the bead or the rib of the gun just coming into the coloured parts or the iris of the eye. Now at this point I just want to recommend having an adjustable stock or an adjustable comb on a stock, or having an adjustable conversion done to your fixed stock gun. It just makes obtaining a decent gun fit to start you off in the sport a lot easier and a lot less hassle. And you can mess around with it, you can fiddle with it a little bit and really find out what works well for you. If you need to adjust a fixed stock, it's still possible, it's just a bit more hassle, you know? So if you need to raise the comb up a bit so you're seeing a little bit of rib, that's fairly simple. There's lots of pads on the market, Beretta, Kickies, Recoil Systems, all do a pad that'll stick onto the top of your comb to lift your head up slightly. So that's no bother, and they do them in varying thicknesses. However, if you find your stock is too high and you're seeing too much rib, it becomes a little bit more complicated in that you need to go and visit a gunsmith and see about having some wood shaved off the top of the comb to bring your head down a bit. When setting up the stock, we also need to have a look at the angle of the gun and the angle of your head. So ideally, the gun and the gun's barrel should be as near to vertical as possible. Your eyes should be ideally as near as horizontal as possible. Now, having to angle your head over the stock to get the correct alignment is not ideal. If you have an adjustable stock, that's easily remedied by moving the comb away from the face slightly so that you can get into the gun and level your head up. Of course, with a fixed stock it's slightly more difficult, and it's going to be probably another trip to the gunsmith and have a little bit shaved off the inside of the comb there. Again, this is basic gun fit and we're starting off in the sport, so if you're just a little bit out, it doesn't matter to start with, just carry on. But long term, we need to try and get this fit and that head as level as possible. So thank you so much for watching again. If you found it useful, I would really appreciate it if you could please like or share or subscribe. It doesn't cost anything and it just keeps up my enthusiasm to continue doing some more videos. So in part 4, we're going to look at dry training, and that's just some little training drills that you can do away from the shooting range at home to improve and cement your stance and your gun mount.